Good morning, everyone. I'm Brian, Career Advice UK, and I'm coming live to you for about the next hour, taking all of your questions about career advice. Anything like, why is my CV getting ghosted? What is a one-sided interview? How do I um, write a cover letter? Should I take this apprenticeship? What is an apprenticeship? Is an apprenticeship better than going to university, talking about clearing, and more? So if you have a question, just put it down and I pick it up on a first come, first served question. Remember, this is a live forum where I take questions, so I do try to answer as many as I can. So the answers tend to be a bit short. If you want a consultation, you got a question, you can always head over to leapstartcareers.com, and there's a facility to book a 15-minute call with me to ask your questions at no charge, no obligation, no pressure. And so, what is Leap? It doesn't. The universe keeps on expanding. So, if we ask the question, if we want to know what do I do in my other time? The question is simply this. I run Leap Forward Careers, and that is it's possible, and I think theoretically it is. There is a point where I think you will get close to the end, but never will never reach it. And if you use mathematics, the fundamental theorem of calculus said that you'll get infinitesimally close to a number, but you'll never reach it. That's why we have, in theory, whole numbers, because you will get infinitesimally close to that number, but you'll never reach it, just like the universe. So what is Leap Forward Careers? Leap Forward Careers, it's there to help those. Leap Forward Careers is there to help you navigate the UK employment market, interview preparation, CV review. And I am doing right now a free CV review for you. All you have to do on TikTok, that's potentially on TikTok, is just message me the word CV. Just ensure your account is activated for messages, because if not, I will not be able to respond to you. Typically, the response takes about 48 hours after I get your CV, and I'll come back to you. What else? On the site, there is a interview question database that it will ask you questions to see how, will give you interview questions to see how you respond and how you can then feedback, how you can improve that question. Or what you can do is ask it a question, and it will then provide you a response to it. So you can ask questions such as, how do you answer? How they answer, tell me something about yourself. Why should we hire you? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And it will give you a detailed and customized answer. I am, like I said, running Leap Forward Careers, so I'm trying to help others with their careers. Hey, Lorma, and until I can really get it going, I do work as contract manager, but it is right now a bit slow due to really the competitive job market. So it is. So if you have a question, feel free to ask. Feel free to ask, drop it down below, and I will pick it up. I'll pick up anything career related. So If you do have a question as to such as, why is your CV being ghosted? How can you get more interviews? How can you get more interviews? How or why are you getting interviews, but um, you're not getting any offers? It is then, there are things to look at, and I'm able to give you some tips and advice on it. Again, if you're looking about apprenticeships, like what is this? Hey, doing good. Talking about apprenticeships, should you take one? Where do you find information on apprenticeships? All that. More than happy to share that information with you. Or is it better, to do an apprenticeship versus going to university? What are the advantages of university? Is it still worth it? Is a degree worth it? Again, as we're going into clearing, it is a really good, it's a good time to ask those types of questions, because if you are going into clearing, it is really good to ask some of those questions and kind of get those thoughts taken care of. And again, one of the big questions I get around this time is, how do you write a CV if you have no job experience? There are ways. It is if you are talking about continuing on. So let's say if you are doing, it's a good question. So if you are doing your placement, your year placement for software engineer, and you'd like to stay on with the company and get a placement with them, one of the things you can do, and I probably wouldn't say the first thing you do when you do come in, you do your orientation. I wouldn't. I would wait and hold off about a month to maybe probably 3. And then just start to ask your line manager, say, hey, I've really so far really enjoyed what I'm doing. And I really enjoy working here. What are the plans, with this organization? Are there plans to bring on, those of us, who are doing placements into permanent roles, or, how do I go about, applying for a graduate role once I complete my degree and I want to work here? You can start asking those questions, and they will tell you if they are doing it. If they are hiring, doesn't mean that they are, because at the end of the day, there's less than 10,000 graduate placements available. And that has a lot to come down to the recent national insurance changes in April 2025, rising energy prices, and all that. So I would say, it is, possible, but, just be prepared that they're not doing anything in the graduate placement scheme. If they aren't, what you want to start to do is start looking for organizations that, that will, that are offering it. Again, you can take a look through various sources to do it, like LinkedIn. It's always a good one to start to kind of do a little bit networking. Networking. And again, if you are, looking to want to know how to use LinkedIn to network, it takes a little bit more than a kind of a quick chat on a live stream. So if you are wanting to know how to use LinkedIn to kind of build your presence, and to get some contact, because I do a lot of writing on LinkedIn myself. Posted an article yesterday and got some really good feedback. And I have a potential call with someone in regards to the article I wrote yesterday and seeing if I can take it further in that regard, the disability confidence scheme. So it may be something I'm able to take on further. So it may be a bit of a way to network. So one thing, like I said, is the job, ask them, after being there a short time. And the reason being because you want to say like the decision to ask about has been calculated, that you've taken time, you've got yourself orientated, you find you really like this, it's a good fit for you from your perspective, and you would like to take it. The other thing is start looking at other organizations that will do graduate schemes. And one way, like I said, yes. Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, that's correct. Yes. So again, build on with, like I say, LinkedIn is another one. You can start going to organizations, that are fairly good size. Typically like multinational companies, or kind of more on the larger size. SMEs, they could. And I did some content on it. If you're looking to do like a graduate scheme and you just can't, find a placement, you can start to look at like the SMEs, the small and medium enterprises, to see if they have anything, because they do tend to have a little bit looser with the application deadlines for their graduate schemes. But again, they are very limited. So take a look at those, look at boutiques, look at maybe other organizations. The thing with graduate schemes, they take a long time to kind of go through the process. And so it is, if you think you're going to be graduating, next year, what you really need to do is start looking at organizations now to see when their deadlines are, or even if they're going to be offering them. And the other thing you can start doing, in my previous live streams, I've kind of discouraged the speculative CV sending, because I always will tell people, if you send off 100 CVs speculatively, you will be lucky if you get one response back. And it is just due to the fact that people are busy and they don't always have the time to respond, especially if there's nothing there. So I would always say, if you're going to do speculative, just use it as part of your arsenal, and just send off like one or two kind of here and there to kind of introduce yourself. But when you're doing graduate schemes, you never know, you may create your own opportunity. And, starts finding organizations that you'd like to do. Let them know, write a cover letter, kind of introducing yourself, letting them know when you're graduating, what your anticipated degree will be. It's a full honors 2122. Any projects you've worked on, anything worth noting. Yes, I do. I do review CVs. And I said at the beginning, all you just have to do is message me on TikTok. And I will let you know how to send a CV to me. And I will do it. I do it free of charge. And so I will do it free of charge. If you want a bit of help afterwards, there may be some things afterwards, that I will charge for. But typically I will work with college students, university students, those with A levels and stuff on prices. I won't typically charge them the full price. I will give them a bit of a discount because I do know it is expensive, and especially in this competitive market. But again, what we're talking about, it's also my time and knowledge and experience. And so there has to be a little bit of a trade-off, but more than happy, if you want more to discuss a bit more, what it would look like in cost and stuff. But anyhow, so getting back to graduate schemes, what I will always will say to people is, do a little bit of speculative. Don't do a lot. Make sure if you're going to do speculative, you do a cover letter with it. It's because cover letters do help to kind of connect the dots and kind of fill in gaps. And when you send off a speculative, especially speculative, it will really, cover a lot of the dots. And what you really need to hit in a cover letter that is speculative is the reason why you're sending off your CV to them. What is it about the organization? What is about the roles that they offer really attract you to it? Why do you want to work for them over somebody else? And again, that's what you would need to cover. So if you're doing a speculative CV, you need to be able to highlight your skills, your experience, and then with your cover letter, connect the dots and really talk about why are you applying to them? What are some of your successes? What if you're doing IT, what maybe programming languages you've done, what projects you've worked on, what have you, really worked on in the way of software development. Has it been like user interfaces when you're developing software, user interface, helping to secure the code, whatever it may be. So if you're just joining, I'm Brian, Career Advice UK. I live stream every day at 4 a.m. for your summertime, taking questions on anything career related, CVs, cover letters, apprenticeships, university, clearing, starting your own business, interview questions, and more. So if you have a question, feel free to put it down. And I've just been asked, do I do free CV reviews? Yes, I do them. So all you just have to do is message me on TikTok and just say CV. I'll get back to you. Usually, I'm on TikTok regularly, kind of like during business hours, from now until probably about 4 or 5 p.m. British summertime. So it will be usually a couple of hours, give me a couple of hours to respond back. And I will respond back. And then once I get your CV, it's usually within 48 hours. So yes. So if you have any questions, if you do, and if you're joining and you're wondering who I am, I'm Brian, Career Advice UK. Like I said, I live stream every day 4 a.m. I also run Leap Forward Careers, helping those to navigate the UK job market. So I do things like CV review. I do help people with their job search. Help them, provide a list of jobs that are out there that appear to be open that they can apply to. And also organize meetings depending on what they are comfortable with. They help them talk about what's working, what's not working, giving them some tips and advice on how they can improve their search to help them find a job that they want. Again, I do interview prep, work out what's not working on an interview and how to improve, talk about career selection and more. So feel free. And also on Leap Forward Careers, I do offer several different services. I have guides. Some are free, some do charge a minor discount. I do have 2 books. One book Job Seeker Playbook, UK Job Seeker Playbook 2026, talking about how to navigate the UK job market in 2026, what has changed, and how you can survive it. The other one is UK Career Change 2026, talking about how do you plan for and implement a career change. I have guides on disability, preparing your CV for application tracking software, or ATS, guides on how to negotiate your starting salary, interviewing guides on using the CAR method, and more. So I would encourage you to take a look at that. So what is so again, question, why do I live stream at 4 a.m. every morning? I do this because typically I'm up usually on my time. As you can see, I have my Dalmatian, take them out. And then after I'm done, I have a few other things that I do in the morning. So I tend to keep it right around an hour, maybe a little bit more each day. Kind of depends on what I have planned, how much time I can hang around for. But this morning I do have a little bit of time, so I can hang around if I do. If you are looking UK for teaching, there is, I do believe, some teaching skills shortages. So if you are looking to apply, it is somewhere to look. Just make sure you are current with the UK visa requirements, because it is a lot there. And so what I would say to you is, take a look, make sure you're up to date with the requirements. Yeah, you can do it. Is when you come in on kind of international, it is usually for students. Usually the expectation will be is that you will leave afterwards, because usually the typical theory behind a student visa is you do not compete with those in the UK marketplace. So that's why they limit your hours, and that will keep you in, because your hours are limited for working. That will typically keep you in certain sectors, such as the hospitality and retail sectors, because there's usually a high demand in those sectors, especially in summertime. But with the economy as it is, it hasn't been as much of a demand. Hey Shay, how are you? Good to see you. If you are just joining and you do like the feed, please like, please share, and please follow. And if you do feel inclined, but again, don't feel those you have to, please send gifts, because it really does help me to know what people like, what it's really resonating with people. And thank you for the share. That is amazing. I really appreciate that, because when it gets shared, it means it goes out to more people, and more people means more people that come in. It also means that more questions. And when people ask questions, it not only helps them out, but it helps others, because others will have the same form. But sometimes people are a little less are more reluctant. Teaching will be, I think, will get replaced by AI. But one of the interesting things I'm reading and finding is with AI, the one area with AI that is still struggling and that's not really getting replaced at the moment is those with human contact. And so those are kind of like the sales end of things. And you do hit an interesting point. When computers came out and really beginning to make it into kind of like the mainstay, and I'm not talking about, because computers have been around since about 1927. But before that, what we're talking about are big, huge mainframe computers that where you had to build a very big room for a computer that is a kind of a, if we would look at today's computers, would be is not even as close as powerful as your today's desktop, but to build a whole big, huge room for them. And so one of the first things that, believe it or not, people thought would be replaced as computers made it into the homes, into the workplace, and internet, and everybody was getting online, was teaching, because it was one of these things that could be very easily taught, because people can search the internet to find the information. You have ability as computers became more sophisticated and internet matured. We were able with, I think it what when we hit, if I remember my computer history right, Windows ME. I think Windows ME was the one where you really started to get kind of like the digital end of things in it. And it is at that point, a lot of things people thought, well, one of the first jobs to go with computers were teachers. But oddly and interestingly, what we found with it is we have kind of like this, how should I say, this repository where we can do online classes. You can pick up classes, um, and learn on your own time. And so we got kind of like that. But what we found over the time, and if you watched me earlier when I've talked about this with AI and jobs, and talk about computers, how easily it could have, computers could have easily replaced like cashiers and stuff. What we found, um, and the reason why everything didn't go online, like the big talk was when we had this internet boom, was the fact that people wanted the human contact. People wanted that kind of tangible experience so they could go into a shop to take a look at the clothes, to feel the fabric, to, pick up that cucumber you know, or lettuce, and to take a look at it, and not to have like a robot in at a warehouse, big huge refrigerated warehouse, pick it out for them. They wanted to have that tangible, interactive type of experience. If I was 19 again, I would probably, because if I was 19 again, probably would have looked at a different career path for me. Using what I know now, I probably would have. It depends. If you want to ask questions, I only put on career related. I don't do anything other than career related. And I do ask, if you want to ask, just give me a bit of a heads up on what it is so I know what you're asking. So if you tell me, then I will. Because I've had a few bad experiences when I brought people on, and it really went off topic, and so I just wind up just if I probably would do it again, I probably would probably go engineering. Okay, let me just see, because I've had a few issues, but I will try with the not being heard. So I've tried to make a few tweaks. I've made a few tweaks, but I really don't know if it is going to work or not to configure. So if not, If it's not going to work, then what I will do is try it again afterwards to play around with it, because it's easier to do it when I'm not trying to live stream. So
hello, hello, hello. Can you hear me?
hi. Oh.
Can you hear me, brother? I'm guessing that's a no.
See, I can't. I'm not able to hear you, and I don't know why.
Okay, well they can hear me, so it's on your
I don't know
end.
why, because I do test my audio.
Weird.
And I can hear myself, and I can stream stuff. And it is okay. No. Let me. No. Yeah, I've checked it, and I configured it. And I've had this before, and so I've made a few changes around to see if it works. So what I would say is I will need to play around a bit more afterwards, because it's easier for me to do a bit of playing than see, for me, I've always been for the engineering side, where I really had a lot of interest and strength was the chemical and engineering. I always had a strong interest in chemical engineering. Yes, it is. And I think there's a lot of options. And it is. It for some of you, if you're able just to study, I've known people who do it, but math is probably the best one to have, because all high-paying jobs are tied to math. If you take a look at anything that pays high, all the features of all the high-paying jobs have one thing in common: you need to have a math background. And so, really, even if you never enter a field of mathematics, having it in the background, having it as a skill you can sell, will go for you will help you out immensely. So always math. And I would say math would be one. If you're really thinking about where to go with your education, the one thing I would say it is, I think with uni math, I think it is a lot different than when you're doing A levels, because once you get at uni, the math changes, and it changes a lot, because usually from A levels, what you're doing at A levels, you're doing up to calculus, and it is more of the practical applied mathematics. And so you're not doing a lot with proofs, theorems, axioms. However, when you get into uni, it all changes. You will do, again, calculus, but then you will also pick up things like abstract algebra, complex numbers, and all these are more theoretical. And so you would do more of the theoretical, and that's where it really begins to change. And I think that's where a lot goes. So it's very easy to do it for me when it came to be, the doing math into things. it was very easy to do the applied. I can easily do the applied, and very easily can do it. Do it in at multi dimensions. I could do it, like multiple integration. But the second you ask me to prove it, I would fall apart. As for degrees, you can do with math. Teaching is not the only thing. Computer science, engineering. Okay, Walson Grummet. Okay, so maybe it's something to consider. So Walson Grummet, interview tomorrow. A couple of things real quick. Familiarize yourself with the job description. I always would say half degrees tend to be kind of work against you because you have some of the skills, but you don't really have the knowledge that they look. So you may wind up struggling. So it's better to go either computer science or electrical. So familiarize yourself with Walson Grummet, with the job description. Make sure you know it. Research the company, know something about it, know what their strengths are, anything weaknesses, products that they sell, services they provide, and any challenges that they may face. Take a look at their values and about them. What are they trying to achieve? What do they value? What have they been involved with in the community? Start to kind of know a little bit about that, because it's very likely you'll get about 90% of your questions off of the job description. About 10% will come off of, like, what do you know about the company, commercial awareness, and their values, because it will, and those will probably be the ones that decide. So you may be able to answer the question, show that you have the experience, but if you don't know something about the organization, company, it may take you. So just yeah, I would say, so take a look at that. Make sure that when you do go, arrive a little bit early, even if it's online. Arrive early. Make sure your software is working, camera working, lighting. You have a nice uncluttered background, or as I always use, a filtered background. If it's in person, arrive 10-15 minutes early. Don't arrive too early. Just make sure you nip off to the loo, make sure everything is kind of straightened up, hair nice comb, and then just give yourself time to relax and just detach, because at that point, trying to remember anything or learn something new, it's not going to happen. So take the time, kind of just unplug your mind and just let the conversation flow. So yeah, farming can be very well. Thank you for the share. Farming can be very, how should I say, social media. I would, for a career, I would really would discourage that one. Hey, no problem. Social media is one that I would say be very cautious about. I'll give you an example. My spouse is also on TikTok, and she has a lot larger following than me. And even if, even on a monthly basis, she's lucky if she gets more than about 200 pounds off of TikTok. You would get a following, but a lot of people kind of learning from her and kind of using those experiences, and kind of even from my own experience here on TikTok. Following doesn't equate to revenue generation, because you really need to culture your following. And you need to have the right type of people who will watch your videos and then buy from you, because you can create content, and on some you'll get like a million followers, 100,000 followers, not 100,000 followers, but 100,000 views, million views. But what happens then is, to get the money, they need to watch it for a certain amount of time. You need to meet all these types of metrics. And so at the end of the day, okay, and then video it. Okay, so I think even if you do like use it as I think farming is going to be a challenge. And I think farming, especially if the government gets into a second term, I think there will be some challenges for farmers. And so I think there will be a lot of challenges for farmers. And I think it will come down to being able to generate additional resources, because farming alone is very difficult. So if you farm, as you know, basically, you need to be able to plant crops, sell them. And also, too, it means if you're going to do, let's say, cattle, it means then being able to sell enough cattle, and the market will support it so that you can bring in some revenue. If you can't, it means taking out loans and going into debt. And that may mean that when you go to sell again, it may mean that it is very little that you take home for you to live off of. And so it is. Okay, so even if it was your own food, you still would need a way to pay for rent, pay for water, electricity, and even with solar panels, they won't generate enough electricity in the UK to be self-sufficient. And I think it would be, I think even if you could do, let's say, solar panels, I don't think you generate enough electricity where you wouldn't be having to bring in some, so you would have to pay for that, and a whole lot. Yeah. So I would say at some point you would need to make a profit somewhere off of something. You need to make money to cover, again, you still need to buy clothes. Even if you would make it, you still would have to buy the material somewhere. And so, and I think you would need, and again, that's, again, the tuition, and again, it would be, dependent on how many people you can, teach. And again, how many people you could teach, how stable that income would be. And again, you probably would find summertime, it would probably drop off. I think that you would just would need to really think about all the scenarios, because I don't seem like it would be it feels to me, it doesn't feel very sustainable, because if you're trying to just get enough to make by. I think it is. So yes, if you are just joining, I'm Brian, Career Advice UK. If you do like the feed, please please share, and please follow. If you do feel inclined but don't feel as though you have to, please send gifts, as it does. As it does help me to know what people like and helps me to plan my content. For mortgage down payment, that can be a lot. Because you still also need to include, especially if you're talking farm, like a second house on a farm. You need to have and when you get into these types of situations, what you need to do is show the bank, you can not sell, but rent out the second home. And that would be a way of generating income to help you pay off the mortgage, because that will be a part of the decision process. They'll take a look at the land, how valuable the land is, how much you're putting down, the shape of the homes, both the first and second. Look at your plan to rent out. They would need to know how much would need to be to put in to fix it up so that it was rentable. Yeah, so if you have yes, oh, it will definitely turn into a million by the time you retire. It should. You just need to look if you're looking at investment, my opinion would be to take a look at those that paid dividends, that reinvested, that paid a high dividend. And if you can get high paying dividends, or ones that pay dividends on a monthly basis and reinvested those, that would help to create an income source for you. Because if you can get one that paid, let's say, 8% dividend, there are a few that have like dividends or preferred shares. Yeah, you need to have liquid assets that you could quickly share. Usually cash bonds are usually easy to convert into to sell. So yes, so I think you have a plan. I think you just need to run a few scenarios with it and kind of get some tax advice from an accountant to help you. Yeah, I think what you can do is get some tax advice, and speak to an accountant on what would work and how you could make it work for yourself. Because I think if you have 100,000 saved now, you could easily, have money to put down on a home, a single, one home, not two. If you're talking like that, I think you would probably need more. I would say if you're looking to buy like a property with farm, you'd take a look at property with a farm. You'd probably looking with two homes on it. you're probably looking in the million range with the value of the land, the two homes, um, and maybe a small farm, couple acres farm on it, like 10 acres or something. You'd probably be looking well over a mil for it. So down payment, you'd probably be looking in the 1 to 300,000 at a minimum. So yeah, so getting back to that, that's a kind of a good, kind of enjoyable question. So if you're just joining, you do have a question, anything career related, like why is my CV being ghosted, or I have an upcoming interview, how do I answer this type of question in the interview? Or what are they looking for in an interview? What is a one-sided interview? How do I prepare for a one-sided interview? Um, you know, those are all questions I can take. So if you have a upcoming one-sided interview, just put down one-sided and I will pick it up. I'm more than happy to pick it up and say to you, how do you prepare? And for me personally, I've done one-sided interviews. That's a good question. They don't spend a lot of time looking. I'll tell you two things. A bit with CVs. CVs have a primary and a secondary purpose. The primary purpose is to demonstrate that you meet the role. And so when an employer, when you send off your CV for an advertised position, they're doing a quick scan to see if you meet that role. And if you have, so they're looking to see if you meet the role. And what they're looking for is basically you've read the job description. So if you're just sending off a blanket CV, that you send off to everyone, they're going to know that you haven't read the CV. You're going to highlight that you haven't used it because there are going to be gaps, and they're going to see those gaps, and so it'll get bent. The secondary function of the CV, if you do get into the interview process and it's between you and somebody else, they will sometimes look closely at your CV to see if it's you or the other candidate that more closely aligns with the role. So when you're doing your CV, it really is important that you take the time to read that job description and make sure that you looked at your skills, your achievements, accomplishments, and make sure it really closely aligns with that job description and it's captured in your CV and cover letter. And so basically, and the reality is they don't spend a lot of time looking at your CV. They don't spend a lot of time reading your cover letter. But what they're looking for is who closely matches the role and the ones who are most likely to succeed in the role. And those are the ones that get interviewed. So advice is take the time to ensure your CV aligns with the job description. Make sure that when you're doing it, that you talk about your accomplishments, your achievements, what you have been able to succeed at doing. Because if you do, it will more or less get you into the door to be interviewed. So, simple answer is, what are they looking for? They're looking to see that the CV you send aligns with that job description and how well it matches. And are you going to be somebody that's able to do that job? So make sure, when you do write your CV, you do take the time. And it's hard to believe. The hour has gone really quick. Down to the last 5 minutes. I will be back tomorrow at 4 a.m. Hey, Mary, British Summer Time for my next live stream. So if you do have a question, feel free to put it down. And yes, if you do want to send gift to, but don't feel as though you have to, um, you know, to let me know what is resonating. Likewise, too, if you do like the feed, please please share, please follow. And again, if you do send gifts, it does extend the timer and able to answer. No, oh, you'd need a cover letter. Cover letter. 80% of UK employers say they wish people would um, send cover letters, because what cover letters do is it's a way of introducing yourself. It tells them why you're applying for the job, why you've selected that company. It summarizes your skills and also helps to fill in some of the gaps between um, the CV and job description. And you can kind of then, sway them to say, take a look at this, or I meet the job this way, because it starts to highlight to them that and states to them, you can do it. It is, yeah. So again, if there's any gaps, maybe it's a little bit of, you're applying for, let's say hypothetically, you're applying for a job, and that job, you look at it, it closest really matches your background, but there maybe is a little bit of a gap here or there, because maybe it's not a perfect fit, but it is a very close enough fit where you feel like you could do the job. And so you want to then use that cover letter to kind of maybe talk about the potential gaps, talk about, you know, your experience and how you meet it, and and use your accomplishments and achievements to show it. And again, it is a way to kind of dress it, and you can again use it. If there's a little bit of a gap, saying, well, maybe I've not had, if there, let's say hypothetically, one that just comes to the top of my head, working on projects valued more than 10 million pounds. It's one I do occasionally see. So instead of saying like, I know the role has, a requirement of being able to having to work on complex projects valued at 10 million pounds or more. I do have experience working on projects valued at 5 million. And I've done additional things like XYZ, that maybe shows that, well, the number is more of more of an arbitrary number, that, hey, look, you got somebody with maybe a little less experience, on the sides of projects, but look, they've gone a bit above and beyond what the role requires. And so again, it's a way to sell yourself. Like I said, it's a way to introduce yourself. It's a way for you to get the attention of the recruiter and say to that recruiter, guess what? I may not have exactly what you're looking for, but I have these skills, and I think it will fit nicely into the role. And again, if you are looking for templates, CV templates, and or cover letter templates, I do have them on Leap Forward Careers for download. I believe there is a small fee for it. So again, if you want one, you can head on over. And so we're kind of winding down for the last couple minutes here. And so if we have a bit of a itch here, anyone that has any more questions, happy to pick up. Like I said, I don't really need to run right off. Tomorrow I will. Tomorrow I will have to be really kind of strict to the timing. But at the moment today, I do have a bit of play, so I can hang around if anyone else has anything career related. Talking about CVs, cover letters. That's a really good question. About why do you do a cover letter? Why should we send a cover letter? Where do I find one to help you? It is all there. So I would say to you, if you want a CV, or if you're looking for help with CV or anything career related, head on over to leapstarcareers.com. My opinion for cold calling, my own personal opinion is, unless it's a real small company, or a new startup where maybe they're not online, or they're not hard, or they're too hard to find, you are probably better off looking for contacts on LinkedIn, or trying to find their website and looking for opportunities, because most likely they will list their opportunities either on LinkedIn or there. If they don't, then yes, I would say if you want to cold call, then cold call. But I think for the most part, and and I know sometimes people will say to you, hey, look, cold call. But we are kind of in the digital age. That was something that was done maybe 20 years ago, when the internet was still a little bit new, a bit fresh, and not everybody was online. Not everybody, uh, put something online, or jobs, or if they did put something online, may not be jobs. So things have really evolved very quickly over the last like 20, 25 years. And at that point, cold calling was really kind of accepted. It's not. It's I would say, my own personal opinion would be, first, try to find them online, try to find them on LinkedIn, and even, if you want, send them a speculative CV. I think, cold calling, it can be seen in this day and age as, I don't want to say rude. It may in some ways work against you, because they will say, well, why didn't you take a look online to find us? Because the answers are there. You're pulling somebody from something, who may have been working on something, maybe needing to answer another call. They took your call, and you're asking about company opportunities, which still just say, take a look at our website. Why didn't you? Hey, good to see you, Imran. I'm up for today. I got up, and I will be up, like I said, when I start. Take my Dalmatian out, and then I come and do this, and so yeah, so I will pick it up. So I will be up for the rest of the day. I would encourage you all to stop by. Not really. I tend to be an early riser. I go to bed early. I get up early. And last night wasn't really easy to sleep, because it was really humid. It wasn't hot in North Yorkshire, but it was really, really, really humid last night, and it is right now extremely humid. It looks like, looking out my window, looks like it may actually rain. It may wind up starting to rain shortly, which, if it does, it would be a great relief, because it is so humid. Yes, well, good night. I'm glad to see you, and hope to see you back again. I will be back tomorrow at 4 a.m. British summer time, taking questions on anything career related. If you do, have an opportunity, take a chance to stop by leapstarcareers.com. I have several things on the site regarding career information, career preparation guides, and interview preparation. And I do provide some services on a one-to-one basis. So take a look there. Also, too, I'm offering free CV review. All you have to do on TikTok is just say CV and I'll get back to you. Just make sure you put in your account is active so that it's set up to take replies from others. Otherwise, I won't be able to respond back. Oh, well, thank you. I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you for the compliment. It makes me happy. I'm glad people enjoy. I know people do enjoy these, and this is why I do it. So, yeah, take a look at that free CV review. And again, take a look at the content on Career Advice UK. I cover everything, so take a look. And I will see you back, I guess, tomorrow, 4 a.m. British summertime. Goodbye and nice seeing you. And again, thank you for the gifts, the likes, the shares, and the follows. And I'll see you soon. Bye.